Life isn't a series of boxes, it's a tapestry. Woven with unseen threads, Arthur lost a job, but found his calling. He built hotels known for their heart, not their luxury. He never forgot the library, establishing a foundation to support literacy. He visited old friends, no longer a ghost, but a benefactor. The scale of his work changed, but not the essence. Kindness, quiet help, small acts that ripple outward. Titles and salaries are costumes. Who you are is what you do when no one is watching. Arthur's choice, made in a single heartbeat, had seemed catastrophic. But in darkness, he found light. His kindness was a stone in a pond. The ripples reached farther than he ever knew. They changed Sarah's life, inspired her grandmother, and returned to him as a new beginning. Kindness is not a transaction. It's a thread we weave into the world. Most of the time, we never see where those threads go, but they connect us, holding the world together. Sometimes, if you're lucky, a thread you sent into the darkness finds its way back. Arthur's story is proof. The smallest kindness can change everything. The world is vast, and the pattern is beautiful if only we dare to weave. And so, the Clockwork Man became the gardener, tending a forest of kindness for all who needed shelter. The meeting was in a sunlit library, not a boardroom. Mrs. Eleanor Vance, wise and warm, listened to Arthur's story. His years of service, his fall, his months in the shadows. The hotel industry has lost its way, she said. I want to build something new, hotels where compassion is the guiding principle. She offered Arthur not just a job, but a mission to lead this vision, to teach a new generation what true hospitality means. It was validation for everything he'd believed in. He thought of his cold apartment, the rejection letters, the quiet satisfaction of helping at the library. This was not a reward for suffering, but the natural outcome of his character. He accepted, clarity washing over him. He was no longer a clockwork man. He was a gardener, asked to plant a forest of kindness. Sometimes, the world finally catches up to those who refuse to let go of their values. Arthur's new beginning was woven from the very threads that had once unraveled his life, and this time he would not walk alone. 6 months after his fall, Arthur received a letter at the library. The envelope was elegant, his name written in flowing script. Inside, Sarah thanked him. His kindness had helped her reach a life-changing interview. She'd won the scholarship, rebuilt her life, and her grandmother, a hotel magnate, had been moved by Arthur's story. True hospitality, she wrote, is about kindness, not marble or champagne. The letter ended with an invitation. Mrs. Eleanor Vance wished to meet him. Arthur read the letter through tears. The name Eleanor echoed his late wife's, a sign perhaps that kindness never truly vanishes. What he thought was an ending was, in fact, a beginning. The seed he'd planted had grown in ways he'd never imagined. The world, once small and cruel, now felt vast and full of unseen connections. Sometimes, a single act of kindness changes more than one life. Months passed. Arthur's savings vanished. Eviction loomed. He found refuge in the local library, warmth, order, and quiet company. He lost himself in books, a silent observer among strangers. One afternoon, Clara, a young librarian, approached him. "You're always so organized," she said, noticing his careful habits. She offered him a volunteer position, shelving books, bringing order to chaos. It didn't pay, but it gave him purpose. Arthur accepted, finding satisfaction in the work. He became the library's quiet helper, the man who could find any book, fix a microfilm reader, or calm a crying child. The title was gone, but the essence remained: a helper, an organizer, a quiet problem solver. The staff and patrons came to rely on him. In the deep shadow of his life, this small light felt as bright as the sun. He was no longer the head concierge, but he was needed. Sometimes, purpose is found in the most unexpected places, and for Arthur, it was enough. Silence pressed in, heavier than ever. The sounds of the hotel were gone, replaced by the ticking of a clock marking empty hours. Arthur tried to find new routines, applying for jobs, donning his best suit, but his age and reputation worked against him. Rejections piled up, each one eroding his self-worth. Without his title, he was just Arthur, a man, alone, unemployed, and haunted by shame. Yet, kindness lingered in his actions, holding doors, helping neighbors, giving coins to buskers. These were small, instinctual gestures, remnants of who he was. He did them not for reward, but because it was his nature. Even in solitude, the echoes of his better self remained. Sometimes the smallest kindnesses are the hardest to extinguish. The days blurred into gray. Arthur woke at 6, dressed for a job that no longer existed, and sat in silence. His routine, once an anchor, was gone. He drifted in a sea of empty hours. Money dwindled, luxuries vanished, and even necessities became scarce. Friends and colleagues faded away, their calls growing fewer until they stopped. Alone, Arthur replayed that morning. Sarah's tears, Abernathy's coldness, the envelope. He questioned if his kindness had been worth the cost. Some days, the answer was no. He felt like a man who jumped to save a drowning bird, only to be swept away himself. Mr. Abernathy's office was cold, the air thick with disappointment. "Explain yourself, Arthur," Abernathy said, voice low and sharp. Arthur explained. The woman, Sarah, had been robbed and needed help. Abernathy's response was merciless. "Our guests pay for an experience, not for vagrants in the lobby. You broke protocol." Each word chipped away at Arthur's years of service. Abernathy slid a white envelope across the desk. Final paycheck, severance, the end. Arthur took it, hand steady, heart hollow. He looked Abernathy in the eye and saw only cold logic. "Thank you for the years of employment," Arthur said, voice quiet. He walked through the lobby, staff averting their eyes, and out into the harsh morning sun. The clockwork had stopped. 27 years reduced to a thin envelope. He had chosen kindness and lost everything he thought he was. But as he stepped into the street, he wondered if, perhaps, he had found something more. Sometimes, the price of compassion is everything you know. But the cost of indifference is far greater. Arthur was no longer part of the hotel's machinery. He was simply a man holding the ashes of his old life. Arthur took a step toward her, breaking the unspoken rule. "Do not engage." He remembered his late wife's words, "Regret comes from kindnesses left undone gently." He asked, "Are you all right?" The woman looked up, eyes red, clutching a tattered envelope, unable to speak. She was just someone hurting. Arthur made a quiet choice. "To help? I'm the head concierge at the hotel across the street," he said softly. "Let me get you some tea and a warm place to sit." She hesitated, then took his hand, crossing a line he'd never crossed before. As they entered, the hotel staff stared, and Mr. Abernathy's face hardened with fury. Arthur knew he'd just set fire to the life he'd built. But as he led her to a quiet chair, he felt a warmth he hadn't known in years. He had chosen a person over policy. The cost was unknown, but the rightness was clear. Sometimes, a single heartbeat changes everything, and Arthur's had just done so. Life, for Arthur Penhaligon, was a series of neatly stacked boxes, each day identical, each action precise. For 27 years, he was the head concierge at the Grand Majestic Hotel, a man of routine, invisible, yet essential. He found peace in order, comfort in predictability, and believed a life without surprises was a life without disasters. Every morning, he walked the same route, exchanged the same nods, and managed the comings and goings of the powerful with silent efficiency. But on this Tuesday, as he neared the hotel, he saw her, a young woman, shoulders shaking, alone on a bench. She looked like a bird with a broken wing, fragile against the city's indifference. People hurried past, locked in their own routines, pretending not to see. Arthur stopped. This was not on his schedule. His mind urged him to keep walking, but his heart lurched, a feeling so unfamiliar. It was almost painful. He looked at the hotel, then back at the weeping woman. For the first time in 27 years, Arthur felt the gears of his perfect clockwork life grind to a halt. He hesitated, torn between duty and compassion. And in that moment, everything began to change.